What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Facci Cinema continuing along my Friday the 13th redo review series. This has been a blast getting to go back and I don't know why I say revisit, like I don't watch these movies like twice a year, but going back, diving into these things and trying to give them the justice that I didn't give them the first time around. And I mean, tomorrow is Friday the 13th, ladies and gentlemen, and I am lagging here and it is ticking me off. I was good backstage and now it's lagging a little bit. Had amazing guests on throughout this process so far, and that is no different tonight as I am bringing the man behind Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone 2, Vinny, DiSanti, whatever you want to call him.
You got
There
it
he
already the
is.
second time.
The second time. What's
Got
going
it.
on, brother?
Not much. How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
I'm doing good. This is actually the first time we've ever done a stream together, so it's
No,
been
this
a
is
long
great.
time,
No,
man.
yeah, no. I guess what do they say on the long time, first time? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Long time listener, first time caller.
I was gonna say we chatted it up before, but then finally bringing you on, I'm excited to have you. I'm a huge fan of Never Hike Alone, all three
Oh,
of
thank
those
you.
movies. Maybe is a little too harsh on the second one the first time I watched it, but that's because I didn't know it was only part of a bigger story, so that was my bad. But
No, it's fine. A lot of people. What was it? You missed snow?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that happened to a lot of people, and I blame COVID. I blame because if we would have went the original route, it would have worked out as a 4-part series that would have been broken up into 4 sections. It would have been beautiful, but we had to wait an extra 2 years, and then a lot of people were like, "Wait, there's another one." So I noticed that in the comments, like, "What's up with this doctor? What's up with his kid?" And I'm like, "Wow, you missed that entire part where we split his head in half." Like, okay, go back and
Yeah.
watch that one, and then come back. That's fine.
I was gonna say, but overall, it's a great little series you did, man, and the
Thank you.
quality is just fantastic. Since we've been what 15, 16,
About
16
that.
years since the
Yeah.
last Friday the 13th movie, which is insane. But hopefully, with news coming out that we should be getting, sooner than later, I guess.
Yeah,
About
no, I mean
time.
tomorrow we're going to be seeing some big updates. Brad Caleb Kane, the Crystal Lake series showrunner, teased that he's going to have a big announcement tomorrow. Hopefully, a couple of people kind of said this, but maybe we'll get our first look at Pamela.
Ooh.
Maybe we'll get our first look at some of the sets and things like that, or maybe he'll just give an update. I'm not sure exactly what they've done. I know that shooting should have started. Should have started this week, even if it was just like small things. I know they're doing still shoots and things like that. And then there's obviously like some other rumors going around, but we'll jump into that.
Of course. But we're here tonight, landing on Friday the 13th, part 6. Jason Lives. I would say a fan favorite. If it isn't
Oh yeah,
4, it's usually 6.
yeah.
Not for me, neither one of those, but that's okay. I'm allowed
Oh
to be
wow.
different. I'm
What's
allowed.
what's your number one?
My number one is part 3, which is probably a
That
hot
makes
take,
yep.
but
No, that's not a hot take. That's definitely
I love part 3.
is in the upper crust. I would say that they live in the
Thank
good
you.
neighborhood.
I don't like the people. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinions, but I don't like when people put it like last. Like I don't understand the bottom of the ranking for that movie. It gave us Jason with the hockey mask. At least it should be in the middle. I'm just
Oh
saying.
yeah, great cast.
Yeah.
Lots of great stuff about 3.
This one, I had it high, dropped it over the years. Rewatching it, had a blast with it. That seems to be the trend with rewatching these again.
Mm.
You get older, I guess you get better taste, is what they say. I guess is what we're gonna go with. But the way we do these things, obviously, we talk about the good, the bad, and then we give our final score judgment on the movie. The stat line for this movie, critics gave this a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes. I know Rotten Tomatoes isn't the best thing in the world, but it just makes it easy for me to use it. Audiences 53%, which kind of shocks me because this is a fan favorite, so it's kind of low. Budget $3 million, and it grossed 19.5 million. But what do you with that low budget? That's actually a pretty decent return, so you can't beat
It was
that.
also coming off of Friday the 13th Part 5, which really kind of turned people off from the series.
Yeah.
And so it actually, Friday the 13th Part 5 actually did sort of well at first, and then it curbed the audience, and Friday the 13th Part 6 is really sort of what brought people back. And then we sent them right back down the tube with 7.
Oh man, yeah, that's next week. I am not a fan of 7. Not a fan.
Yeah, not my favorite either.
Everybody, a lot of people love it a lot.
Again, that's another one that sort of it depends on your taste of Friday. Like I always say, like Friday the 13th is like a giant pizza with 12 different slices.
Yeah,
Everybody likes a different slice. And you know, the people who love John Carl Buechler's effects and Kane Hodder's performance and some of the things, like Jason obviously looks amazing in that movie. You know
of
what I mean?
course.
So
Yeah.
I think like people who were just there to sign up for the mayhem and not worried so much about the story, I think that they definitely that's what the kind of gives them the thing that draws them to it for sure.
Yep. That's speaking of that reference you made. I say that all the time. There's a million different flavors of every horror franchise. Whatever one you like is good. There's just more flavors for everybody else if you don't like those ones. So it's all good. It's just whenever it gets nasty and people got to call people out and be dicks for. They're just movies, man. They're movies.
Yeah, it's just a movie, man.
Relax. But first, talking about Jason Lives, we got Tom Matthews, which I think you know a little something about Tom Matthews.
Oh yeah, I know Tommy.
Great Tommy Jarvis. A lot of people's favorite Tommy Jarvis out of the three. It doesn't take much coming off of 5 though, unless you like Karate Tommy, but that's fine.
The silent Tommy. The strong
assassin.
silent type.
He does kick a lot of ass until it's Jason, and then he's
he's kicking ass, and then when he fights Roy, he's just sort of like he gets his butt kicked.
If he'd have done the karate, he'd have kicked his ass.
I know.
Probably, but whatever. First off, we're going to talk about the good of Friday the 13th Part 6. And since I know you love this movie, I will let you start with what makes this movie so good.
I mean, this movie is, for me, is the quintessential Friday the 13th. It's the one that turned me onto the series. The direction, the atmosphere, the music, the performances, the acting. Overall, it's one of the first, it's one of the few Friday the 13th that has a story going on within it. Like, Part 2 has a story. Kids are trying to, train for the camp. Part 1 has a story. They're trying to reopen the camp. Part 3 and 4, it's mostly just about kids going on vacation. Part 5 is about Tommy's recovery, but the whole Roy thing sort of sets people off, and the quality really sort of drops with that one. But 6 is the one that really took Jason from these independent, mean slashers and brought him into the world of pop culture. This is where Jason became a rock star, and there's literally rock music from Alice Cooper playing throughout the entire movie, which is supporting this sort of theme. There's the big, budget aspect, the lightning bringing him back, the fact that there's no question of whether or not he's alive or dead or what the hell is he. Like, he is an undead killing machine, a Terminator. And I think that that's what really kind of stoked me about this film, is the fact that Jason is this thing that really cannot be stopped. And it's so scary to think that this thing is like marching his way towards other counselors and coming towards the camp, and that there are actually kids at the camp and there's things going on. And that was the nice thing too, because it's one of the first films that actually comes back to a camp in a while. So it's been 3 films since we've been back to a camp. We're at a camp. We're at a working camp. And, it's just a great setting, and it's just a great story because of the fact that, even no matter how you feel about Part 5, I always feel that when you go back and you watch, if you sit down and you do a Friday the 13th tomorrow, and one of the things that I would always do on a Friday the 13th is sit down and watch 4, 5, 6 as one movie. So if you watch 5 on its own, you might not like it, but in the context of the 3 series, it sort of feels like you're continuing this story of Tommy. And that's what I really love about this film, is that for the first time, we're picking up with the characters from previous, not for the first time, but it's continuing a story. It's continuing a narrative that we've been locked into. Corey Feldman introduced us to Tommy. John Shepard carried that torch, strong silent type. But then Tom Matthews shows up, and he's fresh off Return of the Living Dead. He's got star quality. He's got leading man quality. He has screen presence. And that's that's the first driving force of this thing, is the fact that when you get outside of Jason, you need these human characters to really carry you along. And it's not just, Tommy throwing this thing on his back and carrying the whole movie. He's got a great supporting cast. Jennifer Cook as the other final girl and the love interest. Her father, Sheriff Garris, and, Rick Colon, who we brought back for Never Hike Alone, who's an amazing actor, Vinny Guastafaro. You have all the counselors at the camp, which are really fun. And Court and Sissy and Paula and all these people who, when you're with them, you're having fun. You're laughing. You have Martin the caretaker. You have You have the paintball people, you got, and we can get into some of the stuff that's maybe not as great with the characters, maybe too many characters in this movie at certain points. They did ask Tom McLaughlin to sort of pad the kill count, but I mean, amazing kills, great scenes, amazing stunts. They flip a motorhome, they bend Sheriff Garrison backwards.
Oh, yeah.
The end of the film, really, I mean, when you really talk about like grand finales, I mean, they literally set the lake on fire. You got Jason and Tommy battling it in a rowboat, which is like, I mean, just the concept of that is just so crazy. The imagery, Tom really is. I'm talking about Tom McLaughlin. He's a master of imagery. He's a master of tone. He wrote and directed the film, and I think that this is the first time ever in the series up to this point that a writer director has taken over the helm. I think before that, there was always a writer and a director working in tandem. And this is the first time that it was handed over just to one person. And, I've gotten to know Tom over the years. He came to the first Never Hike Alone screening in Los Angeles. After that, we became friends and we would go out, and I learned a lot about directing from him. And he just has such a great sensibility and style. I mean, I know he's directed over other than the movies, directed over 100 TV episodes and directed TV movies and things like that. So, he's got an illustrious career. He's a rock star himself. He was in a band for a long year. He's still in the band too, the Sloths. So he carries that sort of bravado and interesting approach to the film that I think really helped reinvigorate Jason for a new audience, which was me. I was just sort of coming up at that age where I was just old enough to start watching Friday the 13th films. And, the first 5 had already come out. And I think when I started watching them, 7 had come out, but 6 was the one that really sort of like, oh my God, this is everything that's great. I feel like it takes everything that's great about part 4 and everything that's great about part 2 and mashes them together in the sense that you get that sort of like really great atmosphere and tone of part 4 and a really good, brutal looking Jason. And then you put him in a movie like part 2, where it's just a really good story going on with all the counselors trying to, train for the camp, and you have good characters. Where part 2's downfall is just the look of Jason. Not a huge fan, not really intimidated by Sackhead Jason. I feel like as an older person, I could take Sackhead Jason, but the other Jasons, I don't. Like, I feel like I wouldn't be able to take on CJ Graham, Undead Jason, Mark, because there's nothing you can do. He's going to punch your heart out. The film starts off with that big bang, the opening sequence, the car coming down the road. We think that may be Pam's truck, Horseshack getting his heart punched out, the lightning. I mean, there's so many good things. I mean, I could go, there's not many bad things you can say about this movie. And that's what I love about it. It's like one of the ones that's like a surefire hit. And with some Friday the 13th fans, it does it because they feel like it's too goofy and it's too comic and it's reaching for some laughs here or there. And I feel like even when it doesn't hit the laugh, it doesn't take me out of the picture. And I think that's why, I really do think that Friday is like the peak of the whole series.
You are not wrong, my friend, because Jason Lives, like we talked about, brought the franchise back to the top. And then from here on out, it was a quick it was course to the ground.
It was a steep drop.
Yeah. You had 7. It's okay. 8, a lot of people hated it because obviously it was Jason on a boat. Mm-hmm. Jason Goes to Hell. I'm a fan of it, but I know a lot of people hate it. And it just goes everywhere. And this one was like the last one that was there at a camp, because going over these movies, you realize that most of these movies don't take place at a camp, even though it's a camp slasher. But most of them take place other places, which is crazy if you go back and think about it. But this one brought it back to the camp, like you said, with kids for the first time. Obviously, the first movie, there was kids there, but that didn't count technically because it was just the opening. This one had kids there. There was higher stakes. You don't know what's going to happen to those kids. I mean, Jason's never killed a kid, but maybe he might. You don't know. That added a nice touch to this movie as well. And then you got the final guy kind of with a final girl. So you got the nice little combo there as well with Tommy and Megan, which are fantastic together. And Megan is very cute, so that doesn't hurt either. And then you got a great sheriff here who actually does stuff, not like other movies where the sheriff just sits around and is like, I don't believe you. He didn't. But whenever stuff was going down, he was on the case trying to solve what was going on. So mad props to the sheriff as well in this movie. It is a fun ass time. Is it like I said, my personal favorite in the franchise? No. but it's definitely one of the best in the entire franchise. And I do see why a lot of people dig this one, especially those that love that MTV era, Freddy, Jason. I get it. This is the one, like you said, the one that kicked Jason up there, because the other ones, yes, Jason was the man and the legend, but it wasn't into the pop culture like this movie put
Mhm.
him. And I definitely see why people love this one. And the soundtrack is badass for sure.
Yeah.
Alice Cooper everywhere in this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the production value really takes a step up. It feels like a bigger movie. It feels like an action movie in some
Yeah.
places. It's got the Bond opening, so it is tapping into pop culture and making Jason larger in life in that way. Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough to really. Yeah, like I said, it's tough to really kind of go wrong with this movie. It's one of those ones that no matter where you fall on the Friday the 13th spectrum, this is one that if it's on, you're going to sit down and watch it and you're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
good time. The other ones, I think, as they start to kind of fall off, they become watches of where you get to sort of like have fun with the watch by making fun of it, or kind of,
Yeah.
it's more of like a background noise type watch. But even as a kid, when I watched the other ones too, like 7 and 8, like I feel like 8, if they had nailed the look of him at the end and they didn't mess up like the young boy Jason throughout the whole thing, they were like, it would have worked if they just paid attention to a few more different little details. And part
Mm-hmm.
7 probably would have worked better if they didn't get the MPAA in there to cut out all those kills and hack it all to death. Though I'm not a huge fan of the telekinesis, because I felt like that's a silly trope. But I think in the 80s, telekinesis was something that was super popular. I mean, telekinesis is all over giallo films. Obviously, you have Carrie, and everybody. There's so much. What was the other one? Phenomenon and Philomena and all these different movies that kind of focus on that sort of power. Like, I think everyone wanted the Force. I think Star Wars sort of like bled into the 80s horror. Like everyone could use like, oh, I can move things with my mind.
Yeah.
Everything was like, you notice that like old movies, there's a lot of, oh, I can move things with my mind tricks is like kind of what they hang. Like the most super powerful people can always just move shit without touching it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd all sit there and try to like grab our remotes with our minds after that. And try to do that. But they don't do that as much anymore, I've noticed. It's not really like a theme that we really go to, because I think back in the day, people legitimately thought that we could have telekinesis and do shit like that. They were convinced that like it could happen. And I think that's why it happened in so many movies. It was a wish fulfillment. But yeah, back to 6, where they didn't have any telekinesis. They just had raw comedy and raw action and good scenes. I think we should talk about, because you brought up David Kagan and the sheriff. I really love the fact that, like, one of the rules of the first Friday the 13th was Victor Miller didn't want there to feel like there was any sort of police presence at this camp. And in fact, I believe Ron Kurz, when he came in and he wrote the scene with the deputy who comes in on the motorcycle to talk to the kids, it's like, oh, no weirdos around here. He actually hated that scene because it made it feel like, oh my God, like they could get help at any time. Like the cops could always be there just to save them from the situation. They didn't want that. And so it's funny that this sort of goes against that, but it became what the cops became is a great antagonist for Tommy. And it's something that I really honed into on Never Hike Alone, because I noticed how it was such a great dynamic that when you look at the dynamic of part 6 is until the cops and Tommy start working together, things aren't going to work out well for anybody, because they're going to keep getting in the way of the Tommy, and Tommy's going to keep distracting the cops from doing what they need to do. And obviously they've never seen Jason. They don't expect Jason to show up. So when things start going wrong, they believe Jason's in the ground. And as far as they're concerned, that grave's kind of covered over. I thought that was such a great little touch of like how to make Tommy the crazy person and keep that theme of him being a crazy person, an escapee from, a mental institution or a graduate of a mental institution, and people seeing him in that way and having that stigma about him carry through with him and not be able to sort of like, he's sort of like the boy who cried wolf in a way, where he's coming to town. He's like, the wolf is here. And everyone's like, you're fucking crazy. So we're not going to believe you. You're going to jail. What's it called? The chemistry between Kagan and Vinny was great. It's just for the back and forth. And then the chemistry between Vinny and Tom. And it's a chemistry that's lasted for all these years. And so it was really easy for me when we were talking about Never Hike Alone 2. And when we had finished Never Hike Alone 1, the first question that I asked Tom was, can you get me in touch with Vinny Guastafaro? And I think he reached out to me first and he asked me, would you be interested in meeting with Vinny to do some Never Hike stuff. And I was like, dude, I was going to ask you, like, I need him. Like, he needs to be the sheriff. It's perfect. And it just sort of like, what I loved about Vinny being a part of the Never Hike Alone series that ties back to part 6, which I thought was such a strong story element, was the fact that Tommy needs an antagonist. Tommy needs someone other than Jason that's going to get in the way, because unless there's somebody in the way between Tommy and Jason, then Tommy's going to eventually figure and we're not going to believe that Tommy couldn't figure out all this time. I needed because people ask that too. Like when they watched the first Never Hike Alone, they were like, well, wait a second, how does Tommy not, all these questions. And I knew that was coming, and I thought ahead, and I was like, man, if I can get Vinny Guastafaro and bring the sheriff in, I can create this same dynamic that, Vinny got locked in the cell. He never got to see Jason. He's got to take Tommy and Megan at their word. He doesn't believe anything they say. And thus starts this rivalry. And so for me, that becomes a special relationship because it helped me out down the line, because it gave me the foundation to go on and create the series that I did. And so again, that's working off the credit of Tom McLaughlin, creating strong characters. And things that I really love about this world is that there is a sense of world building. The town has changed its name to Camp Forest Green. And if you read the Friday the 13th novel, there's a great little line in there that Kagan doesn't say in the movie, but he says it in the book, where he says, he calls, what does he say? He moved to Crystal Lake, where they changed it to they changed it to Forest Green, but he always thought it was stupid because it sounded like they named the town after a crayon. And I was like, that's a great line. But there's sort of like, again, now we've seen the town sort of react to the fact that Jason has been a problem. They try to do something about it, and then it reverts back to Crystal Lake back in part 7. And so and that's fine. And I actually think that that's fine. I think that maybe Forest Green, seeing Forest Green, it's like, maybe that's one little thing I'd want to change about the movie. It's like, can you imagine if it was all Crystal Lake and we didn't have to see anything called Forest Green? It would just make more sense. But it's fine. And it's at least people trying to deal with the Jason problem. And I love that. I love when a story when characters in a story, they take measures to do something, and they take the correct measures, and they do everything they're supposed to do it right. And it still doesn't work. And that's what I love about the setup for them, is that they do everything correctly. They do everything that they should be doing, but they're wrong, and it still doesn't work. And it doesn't matter, because like Tommy says, like, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's still Crystal Lake to him. And so that was sort of like a really great, and there's just really great moments like that. And the fact that Tommy had a plan, it wasn't just a random, like, bunch of people who don't know they're being stalked. All of a sudden they just defend themselves, and one of them happens to kill Jason at the end. Yeah. This was Tommy with a plan of like, all right, we've been going for 6 movies. Let's come up with a system that says, all right, there's a way to destroy this supernatural beast once and for all. And obviously that didn't work. No. But at least it gave it a goal. There was a clear goal. We knew what he was marching to. There was motivation. And so we could go on that journey with him, versus sort of meandering through the movies, which a lot of them sort of do. I feel like that's some of the struggles of part 7 and part 8, is we sort of meander with Tina. We meander with Rennie. They don't like, Tina's just trying to not be crazy and use her powers. Rennie is trying to get over her fear of water. It's not really, it's not really like an exciting story in which we're going to be like, yes, I hope Rennie really beats that fear.
Hope she swims again. Good for her.
Cut to her. She's in the Olympics, and that's how it ends. You know what I mean? And then Jason pulls her in the bottom of the pool.
They should have done
that. Would have been a better ending.
That'd have been cool.
That would have been kind of cool. He just comes out the pipe straight from Manhattan. Remember, there was a Piranha movie that did that. It was a Piranha 2. They released the piranhas into the pool, and they swim through the thing and come out. They just do that to Jason. That'd be great. But yeah, it's just, again, it's just such a well-built movie. It's sort of like if Friday the 13th part 6 was a house, it would just be a nice, it would be a big Gothic, that big black Gothic house on the corner that just looks beautiful, like Dracula lives there. And you just be like, yes, that is a fucking cool house. I want to go and check out that inside. That's definitely how I describe it.
It's definitely a ride. I mean, if you were looking for fun, if you want a fun Friday the 13th movie, part 6 is definitely the way to go. Not that the other ones ain't fun. Well, I don't think the first one's fun at all. And I don't think it's going for fun whatsoever in the first one.
No.
But it's a little serious and dark.
Yeah, no, I think it's melancholy. It's a little melancholy, the first one.
Which is growing on me, by the way. I wasn't a huge fan of the first one, but keep rewatching it, and I keep falling in love with it, actually. So you could fall in love with any of these movies if you give them a fair shake and give it some chances.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Maybe. Not Jason X. hate it.
Really hate Jason X?
Everybody
Can't.
says that. They're like, that's so fun. And I was like, I fucking hate it.
Yeah, I know it's tough. There's a lot of the production value drops very low, and the CG VFX were like, I can't believe that they ended up in a final theatrical movie. I was like, holy shit! Like this looks like something made in Bryce
Sci-fi.
3D.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody will get the Bryce 3D reference, but that will state your age.
How I don't know. He might be your favorite Jason. I'm not sure, but CJ Graham, he does a fucking fantastic job. I know there was two Jasons in this movie,
Yep.
but the other one got replaced because he
Mhm.
was not the
It was
correct
rotund.
size of Jason, I guess.
Yeah, they didn't like the extra love that he had in his stomach. I don't know. Jason must have been eating the maggots in the casket. But yeah, no, the funny thing about CJ, and I don't know how many people know this, but before CJ was in the movies, was actually he was a male stripper. He worked at Chippendales.
I did not know that.
And he had an act where he came out as Jason and stripped as Jason. And so the producers had heard about this and they went and they watched his performance and they, thought that was funny. And then they got the dailies back to Paramount, and Paramount was like, what's up with this fat dude playing Jason? And shout out to Dan Bradley, because he's a fucking talented dude as it is. He just wasn't the right shape. And they were like, what about that CJ guy? And so the thing with CJ is that he wasn't just a Chippendales dancer. He was more than that. He was actually in the military, military or army. I can't remember which one. He was in one of those two branches, but he was somebody who was well-trained. He was in great physical shape and he knew how to follow orders. So when they hired him, and we acted in 13 Fanboy together. And so we got a chance to sit down and break bread, and we even tied each other's shoes at one point because we were so like padded up that we couldn't bend down to tie our own shoes. So we had to tie each other's shoes, and we were just kind of catching up and talking. And he talked about how he was like, he's like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew how to follow orders. And so we worked with a stunt coordinator, and they said, all right, you're going to walk that way. All right, you're going to walk that way. You're going to swing the machete this way. We're going to set you on fire. And then we're going to throw you in the lake. And he was like, cool, whatever you need. Let's do it. And, he did the whole, he did the stunts at the bottom of the pool. They did the UCLA, or not UCLA. I think they did it in someone's backyard, actually.
I think it was somebody's backyard.
So, but I mean, he was at the chain at the bottom of the pool. They had somebody bringing in a ventilator for him to breathe and all that stuff. So he went as this person who was untrained and never done it before, and stepped up and really kind of carried that torch for Jason, and was able to, he passed that torch on obviously to Kane afterwards, but, coming in with no experience like that, I mean, he did an amazing job, and he was the Jason that frightened me as a kid. He was the one that I thought that was in the lake that I grew up on, and excellent work.
What do you think about the gloves? You feeling the gloves? You like them?
No, I think, it was funny as a kid, I never minded them, and after doing a design for Jason, I realized at the beginning of the movie he's got these great hands. The hands look so cool. He's got the heart in the hand, and it looks really nasty. And, I've always wanted to see a Jason that had gnarly hands with bones sticking out the ends of the fingertips, that when he grabs somebody, it could like rip their skin. Like, he's not Freddy, but like it would be visceral and nasty and get his, sort of like Zombie 2, like Fulci, like kind of like Fulci Zombie meets Friday the 13th with those hands and doing some nasty shit. Like Beekler probably could have done something with that, with his look. But the gloves are sort of like goofy. The belt has not held up for me over the years. I feel like that sort of is a downgrade, from there. I feel like it does kind of look off-putting, because if you took those two things off of him, I think he looks better.
Yeah.
I think he looks better without it. Like the scene where he has the spear. Well, I guess he does put the gloves on after the first scene because he takes Tommy's gloves. But, without the belt and just the spear, he looks pretty good. You can get away with the gloves a little bit, that one. I just think it kind of, the belt sort of, I don't know. It just sort of, the costume starts to become too busy, and it starts to become a costume versus clothes that he's wearing. And that's when it starts to take you out. I mean, it doesn't take me out of the film now, but it's just, if you take him out of the movie and you line up all the Jasons side by side, it's one of those things that sticks out when you compare him to a Ted White, when you compare him to Kane Hodder in Part 7, which is like a great, like, there's nothing about his clothing. It's all about the way he looks, and all the detail, and seeing the spine and all that stuff is really creepy. And so that's sort of the way I thought that was a really great take by Beekler, which I think would have been interesting to see if that sort of version was in Part 6. But, I'm really happy with the way that, I have no really huge complaints about it.
Yeah, I know he's the Home Depot Jason is what most people call him, and I get it. I mean, but it isn't like he just randomly got some gloves on. Obviously, Tommy had the gloves. He took them off, laid them down. So it makes sense that he had Jason said, fuck it, I'll put them on.
Yeah, why
I don't.
would Jason? Why would a corpse put on gloves?
I don't know. He's thinking.
No, it was totally for budget reason. I can tell you that much right now. It was for budget reason.
They could. He couldn't come up with any cool the special effects for the hands cost too much. They just put the gloves on.
Yeah, they probably back in the day they weren't working with silicone, so they were working with latex, and I'm sure that having to do some of the stunts with complete latex gloves would have been more challenging. I don't know if you've ever had to try to put on latex gloves and do stuff with them, but they bend and they show off that they're latex very simply. Like since the silicone has become, I think a little bit more modern. I have silicone gloves that I use for Ghost Jason. I mean, I have full dexterity, although we do call Brian, my stunt double, calls them the jelly fingers, because they're just so thick and fat. Like you have fat sausage fingers when you have them on. But I like that because it makes your hands look big and menacing. So it wasn't a bad thing. It's just, I just don't think that they had the right stuff. And probably if they were going to sit there and paint his hands every day, it would have taken a while to get him through makeup and things like that. So I understand why they put the gloves on. Oh, well, Jason has no fingerprints to worry. Oh, that's funny. Somebody said fingerprints.
You don't have any.
He doesn't have any. And what does he care? He doesn't. Yeah,
he's
go
dead.
ahead.
Put him in a lineup right now. He's a criminal. Yeah, but I think CJ did a great job. I mean, like I said, he's not my favorite Jason. That goes to Richard Brooker, but he's definitely, he feels the role. I like him better than Kane Hodder, and I know a lot of people love Kane Hodder, and that's their Jason. He's not mine. Maybe it's more of the fact that the movies he was in weren't very good. Kind of.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing for Kane. It's he just wasn't in any of like the really great ones.
He peaked in 7, and then really nowhere else to go, my friend. It's not. Really
I will say, if you go back and you just watch for performance, I think 8 is his best performance. I think he really does some things in 8 that are really, really good. I think that before the mask comes off, there's some really great stuff. I mean, him punching Jules's head off at the top of the thing is kind of a classic moment. And that's the nice thing about a Friday, we're talking in general, is that like whether or not the film is good, every film at least has a moment. It at least has that moment that sings, that you can be like, you know what, we're watching this movie, not be great, but I know this moment's going to come up and I'm definitely going to pay attention for that moment. And, I think that is a, a trademark of the Friday era. But 6 is like filled with them. Like that's why it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the first couple have a lot of moments, and then, like we said, it hits the wall, and then it's just, oh, that one has that moment. This movie has this moment, but the other ones are just moments of themselves, like the entire movie. So I think maybe. Do you think the franchise peaked right here, right? At Jason Lives, it peaked, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like it peaked, and then the only other spike was Freddy versus Jason, because that movie made a ton of money. It was a huge pop culture hit. It took over the world when it happened. It's not my favorite entry in the series. It's actually very down on the list for me just because of how Scooby-Doo it is, and I don't like the look of Jason in it. But for like stepping out of Friday the 13th nerddom and how most people sort of like approach Freddy versus Jason, how they feel about it, because they're not judging it in the same way that you and I are going to do it, because we're just cinephiles and we sort of get it into that way. Just for the casual viewer, for the normies, Freddy versus Jason was definitely a peak. And I would say that, even because I hate the remake, but I would say that again, for a lot of people, the remake is like a really big bright spot for them. And so those two kind of like carried it in the end, but prior to that, Jason X, Jason Goes to Hell, that 4 film Kane Hodder run sort of struggles when it comes to like movie quality.
Yeah. Sci-fi original movie is what.
Yeah, that's Jason X, man.
Like. And it had a high budget too. It wasn't cheap to make it, but it doesn't show.
Yeah, I think it was like 5, right? Was it?
I thought it was more than that.
I have to look it up.
Gotta look it up now. I thought it was a lot, actually. It looks like 11 million.
Oh yeah, it was pretty up there.
So I don't know what they spent the money on, but it wasn't a special effects. I can tell you that.
Wow, 14 million. Holy shit! I can't believe that.
I mean, not that it's the same thing, but Halloween 2018 only cost like $10 million, and that looks like awesome shit. And Jason X, no. But speaking of the remake, I love the remake, but it's okay. Not everybody likes it. I get it.
No, it's fine. I know. Trust me. I was on Cody Leach's channel. We had a nice debate about it.
I know he loves it.
Yeah, no, he loves. He's a stand for it, and, you know, and I get it. I think that like for people who sort of love the formula of Friday the 13th, if you're really like big on the formula, like, hey, all you got to do is like click on the formula and go. Like, I'm happy. I'm not going to think too far outside the
Yeah.
formula. I think for me, it was just like I started to study Friday the 13th way too hard at that time, and I started to notice things about the plot errors and things like that that I'm like, wouldn't you fix this by now? Wouldn't you fix this type of writing by now? You got 11 other movies to study. What the hell's going on here? And I just sort of got lost in the. I wasn't able to sit down and like check out and just go for the ride. There were just too many things that I was like, I don't like that. But I'll keep going. And then I got to the end and I was like, what was that movie? Like, I don't even know what that was. Like, I think that was the biggest thing for 2009 for me. I was like, what is this movie? Like, what is it trying to really do? Like, it didn't pick a lane. It just sort of like straddled the highway. And it's like, oh, is he undead? Is he not undead? What is Jason for real? And it's like, you said he was alive, but he survived that. And why are they dragging him down to the lake at the end of the movie? Like,
I don't understand that part.
Yeah, no, it just seems that like I said, like my biggest issue with the remake is that there are scenes that are really fun, but the scenes only work for the scenes. When you start to put the scenes in context of the other scenes and building out a narrative for the entire movie, the movie starts to fall apart very quickly. It starts to come unraveled as if they didn't really sort of plan ahead. It felt like they rushed a script out and they were really excited to make it, and then they made it, but they didn't really go around the horn on really punching that script up to really like kick the tires and ask questions. And I feel like a lot of that stuff went to the screen without really thinking like, oh, wait a second, we really didn't think about this. Like, he just shot a guy in the head with an arrow, and now that dude with an arrow in his head is on a boat going across the lake, and it's going to crash into someone's shore. This is a guy who just wants to be left alone. That doesn't make sense. That those two things didn't equate for me. And I'm like, that's not the same character. Like, and I kept felt that like they could have made Jason really smart, and there were just places where they made him stupid as hell. Like, that was a stupid moment. Now, if they had those kids come to shore and mess with the camp, and now Jason has to do something, now I understand why Jason's interfering with them. But
Yeah.
Trent's family's had
They
that
lived
boat
there for a while.
Yeah, Trent's family's had that boat. They've been on the lake. They've been water skiing. Is it just because she's going around topless? Is that why she's doing it? Like, that's just odd.
Damn
just
it!
Odd. Now you're like, God damn it,
you're
pulling the string, Vinny.
Now you're ruining it for me.
Yeah, if you ever want to watch it with me, I'll totally ruin it for you.
I did not think about that at all, really. Like,
but that's the thing. But see, that's the glory of it, is the fact that you were able to get into it and not think about those things. You had fun in the moment. And that's how they wrote it. And I think that is perfectly acceptable for Friday the 13th, because there are a lot of fans who love that type of stuff. And there's some stuff like that in this one that's sort of like the same way. But I feel like that one is definitely it's definitely guilty of doing that a lot. But you know, it's just a matter of the type of mood you're in, really.
That's a good point. Brandon, are we talking Friday the 13th remake or Halloween Ends? Don't talk about Halloween Ends. I love that movie too, so shut your mouth.
All right, I won't go into that one either.
That's a hot take too, and it's my
it's fine.
favorite. I love it.
It's fine. Oh, really? Yeah. I just it lost me when they stared into each other's eyes.
It was romantic.
I was like, what the? I watched it at home because it was the first time. Like, I can't believe I got to watch that at home as the premiere. That's so crazy to think about. And that might have ruined part of it too, because I think everybody watching it at home wasn't the same as being in a theater with a bunch of people. But I remember I literally said out loud, I went, what the fuck? I was just like, what was that? Did he just eye fuck that kid? I was like, did he just be like, I love you, take my powers, and now you're me? It's like, what? Did he possess him? Like, maybe they needed the demon snake from Jason Goes to Hell to really kind of sell it.
Yep, just crawl up. Well, they don't have the other parts, so they have to crawl up their assholes, and then they'll turn into Jason or whatever. Only reborn through going in somebody else's asshole.
Only through a Voorhees can be reborn, even though we've never introduced any other Voorhees in this entire series until now.
And we spelled the name wrong on the mailbox, but that's not a big deal either. He pops up through that floor.
Who cares? He's in the same costume. Nothing changed.
Yes.
He got burned with the clothes.
He came on naked.
That would have been hilarious. Just a naked, bubbly Jason. That would have been horrifying.
He'd have been embarrassed.
You think Kane would have went full frontal?
No. I don't know. He did some crazy shit. Maybe.
Yeah, I know he did that. He did do that dildo gag in the strap-on gag in part 8. So you never know. He might have done it.
Maybe. What do you? I don't. A lot of people consider her a final girl. Do you consider Megan a final girl in this movie, or she's kind of just more of like a helper along the
No,
way?
I mean, she is a final girl because if you think about it, Tommy dies for a moment and she has
Okay.
to go out and save him. And she's the one who puts Jason down for good. She's the one who actually defeats Jason. So Tommy does
Ooh.
most of the work, and it's kind of like it's like Angel Reese just throwing up like she got the she got that one last rebound and put it back up and just kind of put it in. But she, at the end of the day, she swims out into the lake. She tries to save Tommy. She gets grabbed by Jason. It's a short final girl sequence, but it's
Yeah.
terrifying because he's pulling her down to the water. She's got the thing. She hits him, and that's the other thing too. A little bit of a trick there. If Jason can get hit in the face with the propeller, he's not that far into the water. Got it right there. You know
Only
what I
7 feet.
The other question I have is, and this is a short film that I want to add to the Never Hike Alone library, is just a very short film about the two divers at the end of part 6 that were tasked with, the body of the killer somewhere in the lake. You have to scuba dive and go find him. I want to do a short about just those two guys and what they went through and why they never pulled him out of the lake. It was kind of like, you know what, screw this.
Well, I mean, he's still alive, so he's trying to probably touch him. Obviously, like you said, though, it's like a foot. What is it? A foot from Jason's head to the top of the water?
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about it, like he
Because the
should be able
propeller
to reach the water. You know what I mean? The like from here, because
could pull the
the
boat.
propeller's only coming down to here. So how far? Like, is that like a 10-foot fucking rotor? Like, how far down is that rotor? It's he's either really close to the thing or it's way down. So you got to pick one.
It didn't. A lot
And
of people
and
say.
she breaks him out of jail. She breaks him out of jail. She's driving him around. She's running around the camp trying to save the kids. Trying to find her dad and all that stuff. We never got to see a moment, and I think that would have been a nice scene of her finding her dad dead.
Oh,
That would have been a
finding,
nice scene.
finding the pretzel.
The pretzel,
Nice.
yeah, pretzel dad. My
Uh,
dad's a pretzel. That would have been the sequel.
could have cheese dip, and they're in good shape. They're ready
Yeah.
to go. Have a snack. Question in the chat, Vinny. Where is Megan in the Hike movies?
So what I wanted to do in the Hike movies with Megan is that Tommy and her were living a happy life somewhere else. And then the events of part 7 happened. And so Tommy came back to Crystal Lake and was like, what happened? Why isn't Jason in the lake anymore? And so, Jason was under all that shit. So he didn't know where he was, but he wasn't where he left him. So Tommy felt like it was his obligation to go back to Crystal Lake and defend Crystal Lake for when Jason came back. Megan obviously didn't want to go back to the place that killed their father. So they separated at that point. They were married. They were separated. In the original version of Never Hike Alone, they had a daughter. And so dad was living in the mountains, mom was living in the city, and the daughter was stuck between the two. And the daughter was fighting with the mom. And she was going to come spend the weekend with Tommy that weekend. It happened to be the weekend where they saved Kyle, and there was going to be a love interest between Kyle and Tommy's daughter. It was like the original story that I was pitching when I was first pitching Tom all this stuff. And my idea was just the fact that like Tommy couldn't let it go. Like Tommy came back, he got a job as a paramedic. So that way, at the end of part 7, there's all the paramedics and the firemen walking around beyond the crime scene. And Tommy's like, well, there's my ticket to get in there and, poke around when I need to look at crime scenes just in case Jason pops back up. And what does Jason do? He gets on a boat and gets out of Crystal Lake. So Tommy can't do anything about that. That's why he doesn't show up in part 8. I ignore everything after part 8. I don't count Jason Goes to Hell. I don't count Freddy versus Jason. The New Line cinema is like, it's the difference between Showa Godzilla and Heisei Godzilla. It's like two different worlds. It's two different storylines. It's two different universes. We don't even pay attention. I would even say that New Line is more like Millennium Godzilla, where each movie is like a complete reboot on itself. Because I don't think that Jason X, ties into Jason Goes to Hell at all. I don't feel like
so.
Freddy versus Jason kind of ties into Jason Goes to Hell a little bit, but I mean, at the end of the day, Jason's just like 2 feet underground, so he really never went to hell. But that exists sort of in its own world. But in this one, so it's part 8, and so Tommy stayed, and Tommy became Don Quixote, and Megan stayed in the city, and they, she wanted him to come back, and they never found other love. They just sort of stayed separated for a while. And the original ending for Never Hike Alone 2 was going to be that Tommy finally decides to leave Crystal Lake and go back and be with Megan.
Mm.
And they were going to live happily ever after because he's ready to let it go and put it all behind him. Unfortunately, Jennifer Cook married somebody who was very, very rich, became very religious, and does not want to act anymore, doesn't want to be associated with the franchise. I know she did Crystal Lake Memories, but aside from that, she hasn't done any conventions. And there was just no way to get her out of retirement to come out and do it. So that's when I came up with the idea for Dr. Hill and Mark Hill, and sort of came up with another storyline that could be our supporting cast that can kind of take us through. Like in the original Never Hike Alone 2, Tommy's daughter like gets into a fight with Megan. Like basically Tommy's on the clock and he gets a phone call. It's like, I hate mom. He's like, oh God. She's like, I'm coming up to stay with you for the weekend. She goes to the hospital to meet him there. And that's when he comes back with Andrew, and all hell breaks loose and she gets caught up in the mix and all that stuff. There wasn't a doctor before. There wasn't any of that, but Rick was involved. In fact, another thing that I had to cut out of Never Hike Alone 2 that I didn't get to put in was originally Rick survived. Originally, there was a sheriff station massacre where they get out of the hospital and they go back to the sheriff station, and Jason runs amok in the sheriff station, and that deputy, the deputy dispatch kid, who's actually Vinny Guasafar's son, was the one who was supposed to die in that scene and get his head crushed. And that's when Jason actually got his original mask back, because the mask from Part 7 was collected by the fire department and it was gifted to the police department as a sign of like reverence for Sheriff Garris for all the years that they worked together, and said, here, you can have, we finally got Jason here, take this as like a symbolism. I didn't get to write that in. At the end of Never Hike Alone 2, they go up to the camp, they defeat Jason, and right at the end, a bunch of boats come across basically think of like Washington crossing the Delaware, but it's Rick on the front of the boat, like, yeah, coming with like a big like machine gun, and all the cops and the SWAT team, and they show up, but it's all over. And so Rick doesn't get any action and he misses all the action again. And that was kind of the budding joke. But we had to cut all that out. And I said, Rick, I said, well, it was like, Vinny, I'm sorry, but I think you're going to have to be my big death. You're going to have to make a big sacrifice. But what I liked about that was that after all these years of getting in Tommy's way, he does something selfless and saves everyone else. And it's because of Rick's sacrifice that they're able to get away and complete the job. So, we did give Rick his sort of his redemption. That's what the scene was called, Rick's Redemption. And he goes out with a bang. Yeah, bang.
Yeah, bang.
But yeah, so that's the answer to the question, is that there was there, and even in there, you'll see that if you watch Never Hike Alone real closely, Tommy's wearing a wedding ring the entire time. So that was just our little tap, like a tip of the cap to Megan. We just couldn't, I didn't want to, if she wasn't going to be there, I didn't want to bring her up.
That makes sense. That does. So before we move on to if there is anything bad in this movie, what is your favorite kill in Jason Lives? Is it the pretzel kill?
Yeah, that's up there, but I think the heart punch freaked me out as a kid. Yeah, I think the heart punch really kind of like, he does it. I really like I can't remember the name, Darcy Damaris's kill, where she gets her face slammed into the side of the thing, and it's like, what are you doing, taking a dump? And he just like pushes her face through the wall. I thought that was great. The Sissy's decapitation was great. Him just ripping the head off looks great. I would say that those are my favorites right there.
I'd probably go, I'm going to do 2 for 1 and just go the whole RV scene altogether.
Yeah.
It's just the comedy coming from Cork. It works so well. He's having a ball driving that fucking RV, man. And
oh yeah,
taking a dump back there.
What are you doing back there, taking a dump? So good.
Or vice versa. This baby really rocks. That's a great scene. That's where the budget went for this movie for sure. They said skip the gloves, put the gloves on his hands, because we ain't gonna worry about that, because we got an awesome RV scene that flips over and Jason gets out looking all badass on the top. That's and you see Jason's face walking up in the rearview mirror. Ooh, it looks really good.
Oh yeah, it's
lots of head. I love it. I'd have to go with that scene, I think.
Yeah, we paid homage to that shot in the Disappear music video. When we have him walk up on that CJ, that green CJ. In fact, it's funny, if you're sharp-eyed enough for the Never Hike Alone viewers out there, that green CJ is the same CJ that we used in Never Hike in the Snow. And I had a story about that those kids CJ that got left behind, the Jeep CJ that gets left behind through the 3 kids after Disappear, is that Jason basically pushes the Jeep out to the road and just leaves it out there. And there's a guy who owns a tow truck station who finds these cars on the road and just tows them away and sells them. And so eventually he found that car, towed it into town, put a for sale sign on it, and Tommy bought it. So Tommy's driving around the car of these three dead kids, which I thought was always just this little, like those little subtle things that connect him. I think that make it so fun when you go back and you look at those small details.
All around, a lot of good stuff either way in Jason Lives, but every single one of these things, we got to go over some bad. If there even is any bad, I don't know. So that's next, the bad of Jason Lives. And I know you love this movie with your heart and soul, but is there anything bad about this movie?
The gloves. No, so we'll start with the gloves. No, I mean, I don't think that there's anything truly bad. Again, if there's anything bad, it's just, the heart punch, the heart was supposed to beat in the hand. Deputy Playboy, when he gets his head crushed, there was supposed to be brains flying everywhere. So it does get pretty tempered down. I know that fans will give it, will deduct points because there's no real nudity in it. I'm not a big fan of nudity in films. Like, I feel like I always get that sense of when I was a kid of like, I hope my mom doesn't walk in right now because she's going to think I'm only watching it for the boobs, but I'm actually here for Jason. Although I was there for the boobs too, but
of course.
But there's no nudity. I can't really think of a bad thing to say about this movie. I mean, like for me, it is a perfect Friday the 13th film from front to back. There's little nitpicky things like that. Like some of the humor is a little off-putting with the paintballers. It gets a little goofy. Some of the music in there is really goofy. I don't think there's some of the music score in there where it's like, and it's like really like kind of cartoony and stuff like that. I thought that was sort of where it's sort of like it became unserious. And then I'm just sort of scanning through the movie in my head for like any parts that I don't really like. But no, aside from that, I'm like down. Yeah. And other than the fact that like, and then the other small thing is like, we have to go through the whole movie with the whole place called Forest Green, which is just kind of an odd thing, but it's, when you put it in the context of the story and the whole thing, it makes a ton of sense. How about you? What are your negatives?
Definitely the gloves and the toll belt, because that's really not necessary. Or Jason's never done it, but I guess this is the undead version, and that's his fashion, I guess. So can't hate on him for that.
Although we do get the dart throw, which is pretty interesting, but that could have been anything. Could have been a bow and arrow. That would have been a great place for like a bow and arrow scene. But you had the throwing darts, which is fine.
He got good aim too. Right in the fucking head. It's good.
Yeah, I mean, he like after all those years, I mean, he's still got it.
He's like a ninja. See, he must have been watching Tommy from Part 5 and learning his ninja skills.
Exactly right.
I
got to train.
And then
he's doing the one punch in the in the casket like Kill Bill.
At least this casket was buried deep down, right?
Yeah.
Part 5, when they dug him up in the dream scene, he was like this far down in the ground.
Hell, we built a bigger grave in Jason Rising.
I love Jason Rising, one of my favorite fan films. Just saying.
It's great.
Had a good time with that one. I would say that, and I think the kills just only because obviously MPAA got involved a little bit neutered down, just a little, not as bad as Part 7, obviously, but still a little bit. I could have showed a little bit more gore, but that's kind of a nitpick, I guess. Other than that, I have a really, really good time. I don't really have too many bad things to say about this movie. I can't really remember. Do we get any of that traditional Friday the 13th music in this? I don't recall being.
No, it's more of it's a brand new score. It's the first time that really kind of Harry dispatches from the original kind of tone. Other than that, like we were talking about this a little bit last night too, about like, in the first 5 movies, it's basically the same score over and over again, just like with little changes. But Part 3 stands out, one from the disco theme, but also because it introduces a lot of French horns, which is what I really like. That's what the thing of the score of Part 3 is. I think maybe the best of the original 5. It really just stands out. It really becomes like very verbose, very full. It feels like a full orchestra. It has it's just so much brass in it. With the soundtrack for this one is sort of it's there. I mean, think about the opening, like is that opening sustain of like the violins. It's just kind of holding at the beginning, which kind of is that classic, but it's a little bit different. And it definitely lends itself to to what Tom was going for, which is classic Universal horror. It really gives you that Universal horror feel, which is definitely different from the first 5. So I'm definitely a big fan of it. Not that I don't like the first 5, but
yeah. And then part 7, well, yeah, from here on out, the music kind of it doesn't really sound like the first 5.
No,
5
and then
it changed. The change started in 5. It had some of the traditional shit, but it was a little bit different. And then obviously 6, 7, I don't. It's really different in 7, if I'm not mistaken. And 8,
very different, new, and then that was a new.
new.
Fred Mullen, I believe, was the name of the composer.
You know, all just goes downhill, like we said. What are you gonna do? But those movies have fans too. I get it for sure. Obviously, one of these movies got to be your first one, and obviously, you're gonna have way more sentimental value to that one than some of the other ones. For me, my first ones were probably 2 and 3, so that's probably why those 2 are really high and they're just really good movies. So,
what do you think, Chris? What do you think he did with Chris Higgins when he dragged her away in the woods that night?
He didn't do nothing. What are you trying to say? Jason is not a pervert. He doesn't do those things.
Yeah, I don't think he did anything either. I actually had one of the things I always talked about, like with fan films, it's like the best thing a fan film can do is sort of zoom in on those places where there are question marks and come up with an answer. You know, and that the story of Chris Higgins and what happens that night, I think would make a fantastic fan film. You know, what happened to Chris that night? Like, what was his experience? And I came up with a story that was sort of like, I think it would be cool to sort of get your part 2, Jason. Get that vibe that he's in the forest sort of trying to stay hidden. He hasn't shown himself yet. This is a moment where he's risking it for the biscuit to be out there bumping into Chris and taking her away. But if there was a moment where, you know, Chris's family understands that she's out in the woods that night and she's all alone, there's this sense around town that there's somebody out in the woods. And I feel like they did a really good job of that in the fan film. His name is Jason. Like, there's not an established Jason yet, but there is sort of like this buzz that, like, yeah, there might be somebody living out there. And so the dad goes out into the forest looking for his daughter, and eventually finds his daughter in the clutches of Jason, shoots Jason for the first time. Blast him like off a small cliff, if you want to, like something that definitely would have killed somebody. But when he looks over the edge, Jason's not there. And that's sort of like, and this is Jason first coming to realize in my head, because in the Never Hike Alone universe, Jason is a revenant the entire time. He did drown and he came back the night his mom died. This is the first time Jason really discovers what he truly is. And starts to realize that there's something else within him, because he just took a shotgun to the chest and fell and should be dead, and he's still alive. And he's sort of starting to grip that and sort of come around with the understanding of what's there. And he starts to hide those things about himself. And I've always considered Jason sort of like a supernatural Terminator, where he's been granted new life. He was allowed to come back to Earth, grow into full form, continue aging as if he was, you know, a normal person. But the minute he starts to experience any sort of damage, or, you know, he gets cut, it doesn't heal. He doesn't heal. He just scars, and he just keeps decomposing. And that's why, if you look at, you know, it's not the specific reason why, but if you look at part 3 to part 4, he goes from, you know, Richard Brooker to Ted White, but his skin gets brown and his nails get dark, and he ages, you know, because it went from Richard Brooker, who was like a trapeze artist in his 30s, like yoked out. You went to John Wayne's stunt double in his 50s with Ted White, and he got bigger and darker and stuff like that. But to me, if you apply story to it, it's like that's the metamorphosis of what keeps him alive. That's sort of like the side effect, is that every time he dies, he rapidly ages even more. So by the time we get to part 6 and he's been in the ground this time, he really has rapidly aged into a corpse. But like a Terminator, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, it doesn't matter if you rip off all the, you know, the living tissue. Underneath is the machine, and the machine is the spirit and is the death curse, and that's what keeps him going forward. Damn. And that's why I love Tommy McLaughlin sort of setting up the supernatural side of it, because it opened up that door. And when you open up the door to the supernatural world in Friday the 13th, it just makes it so much easier to tell the story. It just makes so much things. It just gives it a nice bedrock to just be like, okay, we can do whatever we want to Jason. And that's the point. And that's what people love about Jason, is no matter what you do to him, he cannot die. That simple mantra that is like, and from Freddy versus, again, like, yeah, you sort of have to scour the entire Friday the 13th franchise to pick up all the gems. And when you collect all the Infinity Stones and you put them in one movie, you get a perfect Jason movie. And I think that because I took that approach for Never Hike Alone, I think that's why people liked it so much, is because I didn't try to focus on one thing for the movie. I tried to bring all the best elements and just put them in one place and show people, like, if you put it at camp, if you make him undead, if you dress him the right way, if you keep the characters, grounded and normal, that this will be what Friday the 13th fans want. If you can get a bedrock of that type of layer, you can tell any story you want and the fans will love it. And, it became a good formula for us. And I think the fan films that have come out since Never Hike Alone that stuck to that mantra have found audiences. Obviously the other ones have found audiences that have gone the more goofier routes and tried different, more radical things as well. But I think that, like, the reason why, Never Hike resonated with people is because I really studied and understood the films that people like, why they like them, and how to mash all those elements together and put them in one place.
And you did something right, man, because obviously you made 3 successful films, and yeah, they're fan films, but they don't look nothing like a fan film. So good props to you and your team, dude.
There's a good comment right here from Keller Cosplays about the editing transitions.
See. Right there.
Yeah, so that's a great comment, and I just want to say that was an inspiration for the jelly cut in part 2. So when she screams, it gets hit in the head with the axe, then it cuts to the jelly falling on the shirt. That was 1,000%. It was an homage to that. Do you think I'm a fart head? And when you see muffin and it cuts to the hot dog.
That's a classic, man.
Yeah, it's a classic little thing. Like, I know that was like a funny little cut, but that's an homage. That's an homage to the stuff that they used to do in the films. And I think that, like, is a part of the DNA. And that's, I think, what I'm excited about with Crystal Lake is it sounds like Brad Caleb Kane. He's 53 years old. He's at the quintessential age to, like, sort of grow up with Friday the 13th in the right way and have that reverence for it. I've been studying some of his podcast interviews and seeing the things that he likes. Like, he's a horror cinephile. Like, he likes the filthy stuff. He likes down and dirty grindhouse, like, shitty horror movies. And, he's written Tokyo Vice. He's worked on, Welcome to Derry, which is coming out pretty soon, Black Sails, and a few other projects that are really, really good. He's worked on very solid productions. He's also the voice behind Aladdin, the singing voice behind Aladdin. I don't know if you know that.
Oh,
yeah. He was the guy who sang all of Aladdin's part in the original Aladdin.
Wow. So
when that clicked for me, when I remembered reading that, and then I forgot about it, and then I read about Linda Cardellini and Pamela Voorhees was going to be a singer in the show. I was like, oh, that's kind of lame. And then when I thought about it, Brad's a singer. Oh, this is the perspective he's coming from. Okay, that makes sense of why he's writing. Okay, and maybe it won't feel as, like, hammy as it does. I think they'll be able to actually tell some real story about it and not be surface level singing type stuff. Which would have been, like, I don't know. I don't think anyone's tuning into Crystal Lake because they want a musical. So it's definitely going to have to ride a line with that. But I think it's going to be a way for people to fall in love with Pamela when they see that, like, not only is she a sweet woman at first, and not only is she, a good mother, but she has this hidden talent that she's not allowed to share with the world because she's got this son. And she's okay not sharing it. Like, she's fine just being with her son. And I think we're going to see a thread of them trying to, like, get her to come out of her shell. I think that's going to be a central theme of the first season.
I'm excited about that, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second.
Yeah.
Now the final stage, the Judgment. I put out the polls on YouTube and Instagram like I always do. YouTube, it got a 4.62 out of 5, highest score yet. Instagram 4.43 out of 5. So people love these movies so much.
Yeah.
What the hell is it? Let me see the chat. I put a poll in the chat. Well, on my channel anyway. Before we started, let me see what the chat said. 54% of the vote gave this movie a 5. 25% gave it a 4. 17% gave it a 3, and 2% gave it a 2 and under. So
those were all the final chapter fans.
They're mad about it. They're salty.
Yeah, man. The final chapter fans hate part 6. They hate part 6 because it rivals part 4. And I think that, like, there's a certain level of Friday the 13th. Again, the different pizzas and the different flavors.
Yeah.
There is definitely a section of Friday the 13th fans that, like, everything after 4 is like bullshit to them. So, like, the final chapter was the final chapter. Everything else is goddamn, it's a heresy. So it's pretty funny. But yeah. So and it's like I get it, because I understand what they like about those movies, and they definitely don't. You don't get the same thing you get out of part 4 that you get out of part 6. So it's definitely understandable.
Me personally, I give it a 4 out of 5. I think that's a fair score for it. I would have increased it a little bit more if you took away the gloves and the tool belt. I know it's something stupid, but it just was a little weird. And the kills, I just need a little bit more of the gore, which I love from the beginning of the franchise. So 4 out of 5, I think, is totally fair for me.
I'm giving it a straight up 6.9.
Okay, 6.9.
No, it's a 5. It's a 5 out of 5. And then Kella Cosplays, if your buddy worked on Dairy, we need to talk. You need to email me, because I need to talk to your friend, and I need to somehow get Brad Kane's email. We're gonna make that happen. You need to call me.
Do it now,
dude. It's so funny. The other day, Friday the 13th franchise.com kind of posted like a catch-up article on it, and they named a first AD who was supposed to be working on the film, and I actually found his contact information and contacted him. Turns out he was the first AD when it was going to be in Toronto, and I was actually supposed to work on the show when it was in Toronto. I interviewed with Brian Fuller. I interviewed with Kevin Lafferty, who was a line producer at the time, and I pitched my ass off, and I was going to work on the AD team, and I was going to train. I was going to try and get into the DJA mentorship program, and my goal was by season 3 I was going to direct an episode. But it could still happen, but I'm going to have to take a different path. But I was that close to being on the show. If Brian didn't leave, I would have been on it.
Damn, I'm just talking to a celebrity on here tonight. This is incredible. Dude, that's freaking awesome. I'm excited for the Crystal Lake show. I know a lot of people are haters. They don't want to go the Pamela way, and we just got to go.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand why people hate Pamela. I don't like. I think anyone who hates Pamela does not like Friday the 13th. I think what they are is they're a casual Friday the 13th fan. Their favorite franchise is Halloween, or their favorite franchise is Nightmare on Elm Street, and they just want a dumb Jason movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I feel like people who really love Friday the 13th understand that Pamela is a queen. She's a goddess. She's the reason why we all get to celebrate Jason. Yeah. There is no Jason without Pamela. And she brutally murdered 8 people in that movie. We're going to watch her do some fun stuff. And you know, I got to talk to Brian a little bit about what his plans for Pamela were. And it was great. You know, she's going to be a great character. She's not just like sweet Granny Pam. She's a beast, you know, and she's nasty. Like Pam get nasty, and I can't wait. And I feel like she's going to win people over, or she's going to win a new fan base. But eventually I would say that fans who are really kind of worried about the series, I wouldn't worry too much. Not part 1. Season 1 is basically going to be part 1. It's going to take us to the moment where Pamela dies. And then season 2 through 4, we get all Jason. You know, it's all Jason's story. And if they're sticking to the same track that they're going to do, and that's what I heard, they're not venturing too far off what Brian was doing. They're just sort of taking down some of the quirkiness. And what Brian had pitched to me is that he wanted to sort of give us a Friday the 13th meets Twin Peaks. And so what they're doing is they're washing out the Twin Peaks of it, but they're keeping the same outline. So if they keep the same outline, fans are going to be really excited for the way that they sort of break up the seasons and the way the seasons follow it. It's really cool. And I would say that we really need to get to season 3, because season 3 is special. It's a special season. And it was when Brian was pitching me the whole thing, I was like the most excited about season 3. So fans really good. Like, even if they don't like season 1, please show up, just push through. You know, we're going to get through. Just push it out. I mean, it's like a baby. Just keep going.
I mean, come on, man. We had 3 seasons of the Chucky TV show, so you can get through that. We can get through the first season of this.
Yeah, Chucky. That TV show was. I mean, it was fun, but I mean, I don't know. That show was okay. I did like that they kept bringing Devin Sawa back just to kill him
all
over
the time
and over again, which I thought was pretty funny. I feel like even the Chucky movies after Child's Play 2, it just doesn't feel like the same movies anymore. It just feels like something else. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Bride of Chucky or Son of Chucky or any of that stuff, or Spawn of Chucky, or whatever that was. They just became so weird. But I could listen to the name escapes my head. I would know it off the top of my head. But the voice of Chucky, and the
Brad
actor,
Dourif.
Brad Dourif. I can listen to that dude talk as Chucky all day.
Oh, hell yeah!
Like, I think that he just have a talk show. Chucky just should have a talk show.
That's a good idea.
You know what I mean? You just sit behind it. I was like, what are you guys doing?
They should. People would watch it. They would.
Just him dropping F-bomb. I think my favorite part in any Child's Play movie is when he's in the elevator and the woman's like, such an ugly
Oh
doll.
yeah.
Fuck you. So good. That was the type of stuff as a kid. I'd like rewind it. I'd be like, I gotta watch that again. Said they dropped an F-bomb.
You're right.
Oh, Seed of Chucky. Yeah, Seed of Chucky.
Yeah,
Good
it's
call,
terrible.
Billy.
Everybody loves the Bride of Chucky. That's probably one of the top favorites. I'm not the biggest fan. Maybe when I was 10, but not now.
Yeah.
I don't really rewatch the Child's Play movies. I mean, I get why people like them, but it's just not movies I ever go back and rewatch. Definitely,
I love the second one.
Oh, that's my favorite one for sure.
With the eyes and the guy like in the beginning of the movie was so good, and the whole thing of him being like
mixed together,
remelted and mixed together. There was such a great opening sequence. I love that.
But I think the first, it's just about the Crystal Lake show. It's just gonna be, like you said, you just gotta push through it because the fans are gonna be hating. It's Jason showing up, and who knows, man? Jason might show up early. We don't know. Not like a main character, but you might see him. We don't know.
Yeah, and who knows how they're going to start in time as well. You never really know how that's going to work. There's kind of a sentiment that I understood that like there was sort of like they want to do however many seasons of the show, and then they want to springboard into the films after that. But there's also, there's video games on the horizon. And I say games because I think that there are multiple games in development. I don't know specifically what's going on. There's a lot of rumors about Friday the 13th, the game coming back, which I think are really unfounded. There's no absolute proof that that's actually happening. A lot of people are jumping to conclusions. What we do know is that Harry Manfredini is working on a new game. The details are, it's not associated with Gun Media. It's higher res, so the characters are a lot more. The models are a lot more high res, and a little bit more. I can't think of the word, but you know what I mean. They just look better. And so to me, that sounds to me like it's either one of two things. It's either an Alien Isolation type game, or it's a Until Dawn type game. And so that's probably where they're leaning with one thing. There's been some buzz about Gun and Ilphonic getting back together. Kane's been doing work for them. They mentioned Friday the 13th, the game, in a press release. And so there's a lot of things that are sort of like oddly coincidental kind of going on, but it would be really weird for them to launch something so early after, because last year, 2020, not last year, I guess it's 2 years ago now, but 2023, the rights ran out for Gun. They had to shut down the servers. They went through that whole spiel.
Yep.
When Kane was talking about this game that he's doing with Gun and Ilphonic, he mentions that it's the third game that they've done together. So if you're working on a remake of Friday the 13th, the first one, are you calling that the third game? And he refers to it as like, we did Friday and then we did TCM and now we're doing this third one. Would you say we're doing Friday and they're doing TCM and now we're doing Friday again? You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like the tone of it is there. And there people associate like, oh, Gun stopped working on TCM to go back to Friday, but they're ignoring these facts that like Gun doesn't have the rights to anything but TCM Part 1. So there's not much more that they can create, and they sort of like hit their wall on what they could create the game. So there's nothing to do, and they have to start a new game. And so I had heard rumblings, and I have talked to people in certain. I mean, obviously, that I've talked to different people in different levels, and I almost work on these major shows. A lot of people like literally. I was on Twitter today, and someone was like, "You made one fan film. What do you know?" And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm sorry." Kiss my ass, first of all, and then second of all, I've talked to people at Blumhouse, and I talked to people at Gun, and at some time they were both talking about doing a Halloween game. So there's that. I know Boss Logic is doing a Halloween game. I don't know if it's asymmetrical, but I know there's that. There's, they could do a Scream game, they could do a Thing game. So there's lots of different things that could happen. And what I was saying, I actually was going back and forth with Slash and Cast about this, was that if they do Scream or if they do the Thing, I don't know if you remember that they were going to do Paranoia mode. Remember that?
Yep.
So Paranoia mode was going to be someone was going to be Roy, but they could take off the costume and they could run around as themselves and then chain back into Roy and kill somebody. It was almost like, what was that fun game where you played like the little space people? Remember? Oh, what was it? I loved that game. I think it started with an A. Somebody's going to say it in the chat, but it was like, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
Yeah. And y'all had to vote the people off the island.
Yeah.
So I love that game. I think it was so good. But I think that in a context, like with the Thing and Scream, you can get that. And so I'm sure, since they sort of have that model built, I feel like they could be leaning that way. Now, don't get me wrong, if Friday the 13th game somehow becomes resurrected, you will find no one happier than I'm like fully invested in that. I'm like, I'm in the Kickstarter. My name's in the computer. I designed the free kick kill. Like, if the game would have kept going, I think I could have convinced them to make Ghost Jason. Like, it would have been great for me. Like, there's nothing more that I would want than an opportunity to get back to the Friday the 13th game. But I feel like it's irresponsible the way that people are running around right now, acting like, oh, it's definitely Friday the 13th, the game coming back. I have all these, like, everyone's saying, I know what I know. I know what I know. And then I talk to the people that actually really do know. And even they're saying they are so tight-lipped about everything. They're not saying anything. Nobody knows anything. All we know is what's coming out of Brad Caleb Kane. And that's it. The only people you can really talk to as far as like, I want to say this to all Friday the 13th fans, get your news from Brad Caleb Kane, A24, Peacock, Jason Universe, and Friday the 13th franchise.com, because Jason Parker is tapped in with those people. They let him know what's going on when the time is right. He's going to get the updates tomorrow morning, probably one of the first people, along with Bloody Disgusting and a ton of other people. Even Sean Cunningham is out of the loop. Sean Cunningham, remember when Sean Cunningham said it was going to be in Australia? And Bloody Disgusting ran with it, and all these people ran with it. And it's like, again, if you're not paying attention to Friday the 13th all the time, like everybody, I'm paying attention to Friday the 13th every single day. I wake up every day and I check for news on Friday the 13th. I email people, I talk to people. I'm in the know. Like, there's not much that's going to get past me. And and again, and that's what I don't like. I don't like people doing clickbait shit. And the clickbait stuff is just, it's not honorable behavior. It's not honorable behavior. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Red Dead Redemption. It's like your honor. It's just dropping your honor. You're just like, you're going into the evil. You're going to get the bad ending. And yeah, I just think it's irresponsible. And I think it's going to set a lot of people up. And this is what I hate about it, is that if everyone gets so hyped up about Friday the 13th, the game is coming back, and it doesn't come back, and all of a sudden we get this Alien Isolation or this Until Dawn Friday the 13th, but everyone's all butthurt because it's not Friday the 13th game, asymmetrical, and all of a sudden
they're not going to like it.
They're not going to like it. They're not going to give it a chance because it's not the thing that they hyped themselves up over when they shouldn't have hyped themselves up over it.
Yep.
It's kind of, I mean, obviously there's 1,000 reasons why it should come back. It was a super popular game. It made millions of dollars. I mean, everybody loved it. It had its problems, but we would have worked through those problems if we kept getting more content and they kept fixing it. So I don't know. I really wish they would bring it back, but it just feels like the timing of it wouldn't work out, because if Gunn is just coming off TCM, they didn't sign those rights, or if they're just signing the rights right now, they haven't done any work.
Yeah, it's going to be
there's no work that's been done. You know what I mean? There hasn't been a money exchange. There hasn't even been time to sign the documents.
Dave, are you lying or telling the truth? You're joking. You're joking, right?
Yeah, no, he's joking.
I mean, I'm not the biggest Terrifier guy, so
no, me either. I got in trouble for saying I don't want him to do it.
I don't want him to do it. Nothing against him. I mean, I'm a great success with the Terrifier movies. They're fine. I don't want Jason to do that stuff that they do in those movies, but I guess I know somebody in the chat said, "Vinny, please save us. Don't let it be Damien Leone." But that's just what I read.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, he kind of like the thing. I kind of had an issue with that, because when I released Never Hike Alone 2, like the day that I released Never Hike Alone 2, Damien started pushing his I want to direct Friday the 13th thing. And I thought that was kind of a slap in the face. Like, we were on tour together for many years on Days of the Dead and doing all this stuff, and we knew each other. And he kind of stepped on my nuts big time. And he sort of got this big ego about like, oh, well, I made $15 million in the box office with my unrated horror movie. It's like, well, yeah, because you're the first unrated horror movie to ever go to the theater. Like, imagine if Friday the 13th Part 7 went uncut, like, to the theater, it would have destroyed. Like, you didn't do anything special. You just put on a freak show. Like, it's nice, but nobody's showing up to Terrifier because you're telling a compelling story. Everyone's showing up because, quote unquote, Art is a silly guy. And like, that's as far as it goes. And I said this too, and I didn't mean it in a bad way. Yeah, I know, Davey, you son of a bitch, just trying to get a reaction out of Vin.
He did.
Like, my whole thing was, and I said this and everybody crucified me for it, but I want a story-driven director directing Friday the 13th with a good VFX artist, not a VFX artist-driven director who
Yeah.
just sort of pushes story to the side or just makes shit up as they go. And
Cool
you know,
effects.
it doesn't really have to connect, because that was the problem with the old Fridays. And I feel like they need some, and there's so much talent out there above his level. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, throw him an Evil Dead, throw him, you know, a Ghoulies remake. Like, that'd be great. Like, he'd kill it. You know what I mean? With that type of stuff, the schlocky type of remakes of things in the past to really bring it up. Like, I think he would kill it in those things. I really think he would do a good job. I feel like he would just, yeah. And again, he said the thing that pisses me off the most when people say it: we need to make Jason scary again. That is such an empty calorie bullshit expression. How do you make Jason scary again? I'll tell you how you do it. Watch Never Hike Alone, you son of a bitch. That's how you make Jason scary again. You do the things that make him scary. How do you make him scary? You make him imposing. You put him in situations that feel like he's unstoppable, and he's going to keep. He's a freight train that's going to keep coming. You know, you put people in situations where you feel like they're cornered and they can't get out, and they're trying to cat and mouse with Jason. Like, that's not what art is. Like,
No, he just does gross shit.
he just does gross shit, and he picks on people who are smaller than him. Like, he fights a 12-year-old kid, a 5-foot tall girl, and a bunch of people who don't even know that he's a killer, and he goes after them. But honestly, if you had, you know, Art go up against anyone of size, he'd get his ass kicked, and he'd have to pull out a gun and cheat. And so it's just sort of, you know what I mean? Like, Art's a pussy. At the end of the day, if Art walked in on anyone of size, he would get his ass whooped over and over again. And I've always wanted to do a Friday the 13th fan film where Jason just keeps whooping Art's ass, but he keeps getting back up. And that's the joke, is that, like, Jason whoops it, like, Art will stab him and Jason doesn't die. So he rips him apart, and Art comes back together and tries to do something else. And it's almost like that would be like a Looney Tunes episode where, like, Jason is the Roadrunner and Art is the Coyote. And he just keeps trying to do it, and Jason just keeps killing him over and over again, which I think would be fun. And I think that maybe that should be the fan film that Damien Leone does, because you'd probably kill it in that sense. But as far as telling a very serious, straightforward, too theatrical,
no thank you,
Friday the 13th film, no thank you, we're good.
No,
stay in your lane.
Gore and gross special effects,
and do that stuff. That's
do
great.
it well. It's just, that's it.
Yeah.
Terrifier's story doesn't make any sense.
Anyone but Mike Flanagan. JJ Watt. He's also, I don't mind Mike Flanagan. I think he's done some good things, but I do feel like Mike Flanagan is like, he's like PG-13 horror personified. You know what I mean? He never really gets edgy.
Not good enough for Jason.
No, he's not a Jason guy, but Ty West would be good.
Okay.
I would love
him.
Yeah, Bruckner would be good. I would have said Gareth Edwards before I saw Havoc, but Havoc made me question that one because I don't feel like he handled that great, and I think he's just more of an action guy now. Lee Winnell would be a great Friday the 13th guy. I'm not sure that Friday the 13th really up his boat. James Wan would do good. I think James Wan would give us a killer Friday the 13th. I think he's
good atmosphere and shit.
He knows what he's doing. I mean, Blumhouse gets a lot of shit, but James Wan is a entity all by himself. Atomic Monster, all that stuff. He redefined horror twice. He did Saw, and then he did Conjuring, and he set two cycles of horror. Like, everybody made a Conjuring movie after that. Everybody made a Saw movie after Saw. So I think if you're going to put slashes in the hands of, and he did Malignant, which was great, but I think if you put him in the world of Friday the 13th, James Wan would kick a lot of ass too.
I'd be down. I mean, at this point, I don't even care. Just not Damien Leone. No offense. Just anybody. I just want to, like you said. I mean, maybe not. Is it froze?
Oh, for a second you're like, I don't care, and then you like stopped. I was like, oh wow, you're really hanging on this point.
I'm more of you want the story, and I just want the kills, but I don't want the kills that Terrifier gives me. If that makes any sense, I don't really want those kind, because Jason kills people in some cool ways, but
but Jason's not. I mean, like Jason is there's an art to a Friday the 13th kill. You know what I mean? It's got to be violent. It's got to be visceral, impactful. It's a one and done. I mean, Jason is powerful. He's going to take you out as fast as he can. He's not trying to play with you. He doesn't play with his food.
No.
You know what I mean? He just, even the sleeping bag kill was a little bit drawn out, but he just smashes them. the guy and he lets him die, kills him in one shot. Everybody, like, he's crushing skulls. He's doing things that are, you can imagine it happening to you and how brutal it would feel, bending someone in half, smashing someone's face through the side of an RV. Those are things that, that really sort of like that, are quick and easy, not quick and easy, but just trying to, get that done. Don't know
who art is. See?
Good. Not everybody knows who it is. Finally, somebody who's not fucking flooding the airwaves.
Icon, my friend. He's a horror icon. He's on the Mount Rushmore beside Jason and Michael. Just saying.
Well, I don't know. Modern times, maybe.
Yeah, now, because we don't really have much other choices at this point.
I mean, there's the Ghostface. There's,
of course.
It's funny. Like when you think about the modern one, you got to think about like John Carver. Oh, Eli Roth wouldn't be bad at Friday the 13th.
Ooh, I like Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, actually, Thanksgiving was funny. That opening scene and with the Black Friday rush, I was dying the entire time. I was like, this is fucking hilarious. If someone was going to make a truly sleazy Friday the 13th movie, I think Eli Roth is your guy. If you really think about it, like he would actually bring the sleaze. And I'm not even a huge, what was that first movie he did? Hostel. Like,
oh my God,
Hostel was fine. Green Inferno was fine.
It's gross.
Okay. But I think that he would, I don't know. I think that, and that's what I'm talking about. Like there's Damien Leone and then there's Eli Roth. And I feel like Eli Roth is up here with that type of stuff because he's just a better filmmaker. He's just a more seasoned filmmaker. He's made more than one film for the past 15 years. Yeah. It's, and that's the thing. It's like people keep saying like Damien. It's like, yeah, but he made, the Ninth Circle in 2009. And then he made then he made the Halloween one, the Tales of Halloween or wherever it was with another art thing in it. And then it was art again for Terrifier and then Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 and now Terrifier 4. People give me shit for keep making Never Hike Alone films, but this dude's been working on art since 2009. Like this is a third decade with art and he hasn't done anything else other than like a Frankenstein fan film. So
really?
Yeah, if you really look back at his career, it's not really blossoming outside of the Terrifier franchise. He hasn't told a story outside that world. So that's the other thing that kind of concerns me. It's like, can he exist? I mean, obviously I'm sure he wants to get outside of that world, just like I want to get outside of Never Hike Alone.
Yeah.
But at least I have some other credits on under my belt that I worked on professional. They might not be horror. It might be kids animation, but at least I know how to write other things.
True. Either way, it looks like Friday the 13th franchise is definitely coming back, which is a positive in my book. No matter what the Crystal Lake TV show does in season 1, I mean, it's back. They're trying. So somebody out there is trying to give us Jason back, which it's about time because it's been forever. And you got a super chat on your channel, I think, right there. I'm the same guy who got you the Blu-rays out to swiftly to Canada. I believe I was the first Canuck. Thanks again for that, buddy. Hit me up anytime. Vince, happy Friday the 13th.
Happy Friday the 13th, man. Yeah. Thanks for supporting. Yeah. The Canadian fans are out there. They're first on the list for my international shipping, which is going to start in July. It's going to be, oh man, I'm almost done with these Blu-rays. I'm actually behind me is like all the Blu-rays and stuff. This is like my shipping station. I just sit here and just print labels, man.
Fart the Clown is a one-trick pony.
Damon actually only did makeup for Frankenstein versus the Mummy. So there you go. I mean,
it's fine. Terrifier 4 is going to get blown out to be one of the greatest movies of all time. I already know it's going to happen. It's just
it's going to make a ton of money. It's going to do the thing. But I feel like sometimes I feel like very much now, and tell me if I'm wrong with this, but do you feel like there are things that like, it's not that it's good. It's just that it's popular to be popular. It's like, okay, we're going to agree that this is popular and we're just going to all agree that it's popular. We're not going to pay attention to actually what it is. It's just, this is popular now. Okay. Like, so if you don't go with the popular thing, you don't belong in the group and you suck. And we're going to rip you to shreds. And anybody who says anything against this, and like, especially things that aren't good, it's almost like a joke to make something that's not good popular. So people have to like something that's not good and admit that it, like, pretend like it's good just to fit in with other people. And I feel like that is what's going to wear off about Terrifier in a few years. Like eventually when he gets to 4 and it's sort of like, people are really like, okay, where the fuck is he going with this? And it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. And I think people are finally going to be like,
We're done.
maybe we're done with this. And then he's going to have to find something else to do. And that's going to be the thing. And I really think it would be in his best interest to go after an Evil Dead movie. I think he would kill it in an Evil Dead movie.
Jason got to go. It's almost his birthday.
Dude, we'll leave out the milk and cookies for you, Jason.
Every Friday the 12th. Yeah, Friday the 12th.
Every Thursday the 12th.
Every Thursday the 12th, we leave out the cookies. And
there's
they never eat them.
No. There's an episode, you ever hear of the TV show Psych?
Yeah.
So they did an episode Tuesday the 17th, which is like a spoof for Friday the 13th. You guys should check that out if anybody hasn't done that. You can put that on your watch list for tomorrow for obscure Friday the 13th reference things to watch.
It's almost, what do we got? About an hour. You're in the East Coast, right?
Yeah, I'm at 10:52 right now.
Me too. So an hour to go, and it's Friday the 13th.
Oh, where are you in the East Coast?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, wait, what part?
About an hour away from Pittsburgh.
Okay, I was in Pottsville last weekend.
I think that's the other side of the state, right?
It's other side. Wait,
is that by Philly?
No, it's up by, it's like northeast.
Northeast. Oh, by Scranton and shit?
Yeah, kind of. It's like, it's not far from Blairstown.
Okay.
It's maybe like 45 minutes west from Blairstown.
That's not. I think I want to go there.
It's
so
near
bad.
Penn State. It's near Penn State. I think it's 80 miles east of Penn State.
Okay, that makes sense.
There's actually a Penn State right there. There's like a Penn State offshoot. It's one of like the satellite campuses that are out there. My buddy actually teaches film there. But that, yeah. So I was in Pennsylvania. You're not too far away.
No. That's. I'm gonna keep trying to go to the camp, but I want my kids to be kind of old enough so I can take them all, because I think there technically is an age limit that they have to be so old to go there. So I have to.
Oh, really?
I can't remember what it is. And then
you should send them to camp there. Do Boy Scout camp there.
It'll be Bosco. Get the hell over there. Miss Voorhees will kill your ass and jump out of the water.
There you go.
So we do it over there.
Scared straight.
They need something. They don't listen to me. I'm not very scary. So I might have to do that. Summer camp sounds like a great idea. I never went to summer camp as a kid, so I don't know what that is like, but it seems like fun in the movies until you die. Oh,
yeah. No, definitely. They all seem like fun until Jason shows up.
Jason or Cropsy or Angela. You're getting you're getting killed. You know?
Man, Cropsy, underrated. Love The Burning.
Need a remake. I don't know how you feel about that. Mine's
actually, I wrote a remake. It was one of the first things I ever wrote was a remake to The Burning. Me and my buddy Austin wrote it when we were living in a house together in LA. We were like, it'd be cool if someone remade The Burning.
It would be fire.
It would. I mean, literally.
Like, he's burning again. Piece of shit caretaker. I'm due to rewatch that one. Summer movie for sure, 100%. Allie, Matt, how do you live in Pittsburgh and not be a Steelers fan? I don't like Steelers. I hate them with a passion. So.
Good luck with Aaron Rodgers.
He has good footwork, I heard.
Yeah.
Good for him. He's like 141 and has good footwork. Nice. They're going to the Super Bowl, is what I hear. 2 minutes, whatever. I'll stick with the Broncos forever.
Nice. You got what's the quarterback? I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Bo Nix.
Bo Nix did.
I love Bo Nix.
He's good.
JJ Wild went to church camp once because I had a crush on a girl way too old for me. No summer camp though.
Oh, church camp. Wow, that's man. That's a pursuit right there.
That's a pursuit. Shot by Shot, watched Terrifier 3 a few days ago for the 4th time. I watched it once. And
I watched it once.
You didn't? Oh, really?
I stopped after 2. I watched, somebody was like, oh, Vin, you got to see this movie. And I watched the first one. I was like, okay. I kind of watched it. And then I got to the part where he saws the girl in half. I was like, oh, this is why people watch the movie. Okay. I understand who this is for. And then I watched 2 and I was like, what is this? And I remember I watched it and at the time I watched it because I was on tour and like, I'd see Damien and I'd see David. And, it's sort of like you do that out of respect for people. You want to watch their stuff. You want to be able to have a conversation about it. And when I watch it, whether I love it or not, I can at least have an appreciation for these guys had to, go through hell to make this movie, late nights, doing all this stuff. There's going to be interesting behind the scenes stories and stuff like, oh, how'd you do that? How'd you pull off that gag? Or what technique did you use for this? So, just kind of being up on that. And then they totally big timed me. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm never watching your movies again because I don't watch them for fun. That's for sure. I only watch them because I wanted to be friendly to you. So no more for me.
No, I watched the first one probably 3 times, the second one twice, and the third one once. I and I'll watch the fourth one, but I just got to finish it to see what happens. But
Yeah, I watched like two. I think I watched two like on my computer. I have a big screen, so it wasn't too bad. But I was watching it while I was doing work, and then when I went to a festival and they were playing it there, and they were going to start it at midnight, and it's 3 hours long. Isn't it like 2.5, 3 hours long
yeah,
almost too?
it's 2.5 hours. Yeah,
Yeah, and it started at midnight, and I'm like, bro, I'm old. I'm not doing this.
going to sleep.
I'm not doing 2.5 hours. Plus, actually, that was the same night that I wrote the scene in A Never Hike Alone 2. It's where I actually, like, literally walking the floor, I came up with the idea of how to get Diana the axe so she can put the axe mark in Jason's head. So I had to like rewrite a bunch of the action. So the axe ended up in the back of the ambulance because originally Jason was supposed to jump in the water with the axe. And I was like, oh, if he throws the axe, then Diana has it. And I set up that double axe at the beginning of the movie. We should make that work. And I was like, oh yeah, let me go up and write this. So I went up and wrote it till like 2 a.m. And then passed out. So it was it was worth it. I'm glad I went and wrote Never Hike Alone 2 and then sat through another 2.5 hours of Terrifier.
Yeah, Terrifier fans, if you like it, I get it.
I spell Rogers with a D. Without the D. Oh, I spell Rogers without the D. That's funny.
Oh man, and I mean, you're not that old.
40. You're going to be 42 this year.
I'll be 37, so
All
we're
right.
not
Yeah,
that far apart in age.
No, we're not that far apart. But I don't know, man. Like you have to understand when you're in the middle of a film production, like, and you're working late nights and doing, we were getting ready for we had a table read coming up. I was doing the schedules. The movie was getting pushed around in all these different directions and like trying to get it all scheduled for the new year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely it was definitely, I was definitely like already running on E when I was there. I didn't even want to go to that convention. I got dragged there by somebody and ended up being like an awful weekend. I wish I never went.
Oh man, I feel you though. We're not that old, but it's still, man, it's crazy the difference. You got to do a lot of shit, and then you get tired and fall asleep, man. It's just what happens when you're old or older.
It is. You just sort of, hey, you watch movies during the day.
Yeah,
because if I try to watch them at night, I just pass out. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it.
Well, the wife will be sleeping, so I don't have any volume, so I don't get to hear any of the music. I got to read the subtitles, so I'm missing what's going on in the movie for the most part because I'm reading the subtitles. So
that's funny.
I don't get the full experience, but I don't want to be blasting while she's trying to sleep. So you got to do what you got to do, I guess. And when I got kids running around, I can't just be watching movies all the time like other people do. So watch them whenever I can. And that's why I come on here late at night like this and hang out with awesome people like you, my man.
Dude, yeah, this has been fun, man.
I really, really appreciate Vinny coming on and hanging out, talking about so many different cool things. I know you were linked to, I think, what was that, X and your YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, no, I was like playing with that thing. I was like, oh, I can link stuff. So I've never done this. This is a restream.
Yeah.
Restream. This is a nice. Yeah, this was pretty cool. I use I'm a newbie, so I'm using like StreamYard right now. But
that's what I was using.
So I hope to eventually graduate from StreamYard into something a little bit more robust. I think I was marveling at Davey Deathray last night and all the things he had set up, the Patreon and the way he had it going. So I was like, man, he's talking to them. If Davey's, I don't know if Davey's still here, but he's, I definitely got to have a conversation with him. But like, I got to set all this stuff up because it is my plan as Crystal Lake starts to roll out and more news comes out. Obviously, I'm a huge Friday nerd. You're a Friday nerd. I want to spend time talking about it, but I want to set up a really good, stable base for be like, all right, new episode released. Let's sit down. Let's break it down. Let's go into the lore. What are they pulling from the lore? What are they, because I mean, this is my time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I look at the way, Jimmy Champagne, the way he was connected with Halloween.
Oh yeah.
The way that Dave McRae has been connected with its, with
Dylan's New Nightmare.
Not Dylan's New Nightmare, but
It's Me Billy.
It's Me Billy, but Black Christmas. But David did Halloween, and he covered Halloween really, really well.
Yeah.
And Halloween really had its time in the sun, and now Friday the 13th is going to have its time in the sun. So I don't know. I want to be a part of the conversation. Before I did Never Hike Alone, before I even got into films, I was on chat rooms doing the same thing, like having these same conversations And I wouldn't be here if I wasn't having those conversations. I learned so much from other fans about like
Mm-hmm.
things I missed in the films. And so a lot of it is just knowledge I've been carrying around for the years for the things that have been passed down to me. So I just want to keep carrying and passing that down to the next generation of Friday the 13th fans for things they didn't know about the movies, things they didn't know about the actors. I've had a chance to meet the actors a lot. So I can pull a lot of the alumni on for the series too. So I think it's going to be, I think I got a good setup, you know what I mean? To
You're
really
already
kind of
ahead.
like, yeah, I'm ahead of the game, and all we need is we just need to know what the schedule is, and
Mm-hmm.
then I gotta get a Patreon going at some point.
Well, Vinny's about the biggest guest I get on, so what are you gonna do? I'll take what I can get.
Oh, come on, we
And
can get some people on here. You run a good ship. You run a nice tight ship here. I like it.
I just celebrated 5 years on
Have you
YouTube,
had
obviously.
James Sweet on yet?
I think I years ago, probably 2 years ago, I want to say.
Okay, yeah. Well, he's doing Jason Rising 2 pretty soon.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So you guys got to talk about that. We're working on that right now. That's coming down the pipe. So that's going to be big. Working on Dylan's New Nightmare 2 as well. Both
Mm-hmm.
of them are in development stages right now. I know Cecil has a script that he's written, but it's sort of like the robust
Mm-hmm.
script that like has like Robert Englund in it, and like if I could get everything and everything I want, all these
Yeah.
different things. So we got to kind of talk about like, okay, who can we actually get and what can we write to, which is going to be fun. But we still have Miko, and we're talking to some other people too, which I think will be really, really fun.
That's
Oh
the
yeah,
cool
Discord. That's the other thing I got to look into.
Discord.
I just don't know how to. It's like everything like Twitch,
So good.
Discord, Patreon. I'm like, what is this stuff? Can I just sit in
Stacks
front
on
of a
stacks.
camera and somebody else just pluck me in somewhere? Just plug me in.
That'd be nice.
I
That would
know.
be nice.
That
I
would
mean,
be.
you talk about Cecil. He's been on here before. He's a cool dude. And
Oh
Dave's
yes,
been on here.
he's the best, Dave. Well, maybe we got to get some
Oh,
Friday
awesome.
alumni in here.
We'll
We'll send some people your way. We got Vinny, we got Tom. There's tons of people we can reach out to.
I
And
think it's so cool that just
Lauren
send these
Marie
people.
Taylor's a great guest. She has her
Yeah,
own
I met
podcast.
her.
Yeah, she's great. She would definitely do this. Judy Aronson's great. Adrian King's great.
Mm-hmm.
They're all really approachable, and they all love talking to fans and doing this stuff.
Which is good because you hear all them horror stories about a lot of celebrities that don't want to talk about these movies that they were in before and don't care really about the fans. They don't even like horror movies, and it's cool that a lot of these Friday the 13th people are here for the fans, and that's the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I think that's the thing that really shines about Kane Harder too, is because during those years when it was mostly Kane on the convention circuit, he really carried the torch for Friday the 13th for a long time. And I remember seeing Kane back at Monster Palooza in 2016, and I've never seen a line so long. Like that's when like really I think Kane was really like one of the kings of the circuit too, and I think it ebbs and flows with different people. Now they've been on the circuit for a while. I'm going to see Kane next month in Nashua at Monster Expo, so that'll be a good catching up with him. And I'm going to have to ask him these questions about what are you doing with Gunn and Ilphonic? What is the answer me, Kane?
Tell me now.
I will get the answers. I will get the answers from these people, and we'll have the
come back
truth. We'll have the truth. I
Yes.
mean, I literally have like another YouTube window over here just kind of up because it's just up. And just like, dude, all the thumbnails are just people saying like Gunn and Ilphonic is Friday the 13th, the game coming back. It's just like clickbait central, man. It's like these people.
As soon as I go off here, I'm gonna make one of those fake videos too, just so I can get some more clicks. So thanks for giving me the advice, and it'll be there soon, my
just
friend.
put a bunch of arrows, say it's definitely happening, and
right
just
here.
say that you got your that your
little curved
your
arrow.
source is a
I don't know who it is. So anybody, any big name guy.
Yeah, I read the press release, and I decoded the secret message that they put into it that says that this is definitely happening 100%.
Like a Christmas Story with the decoder thing.
Yeah, right. The
Make
decoder
sure
ring.
to drink your Ovaltine. What the fuck? Terrible coding. But I think that is gonna wrap up tonight's episode of Jason Lives. I can't thank Vinny enough for coming and hanging out. This was dope as hell. And a lot of eyes were on this, way more than it would have been otherwise. So thanks for connecting your stuff and getting as many people here as possible. I really do.
Yeah, I didn't know
that
it did that. That like it connect. I just thought that like, okay, I guess maybe it like I don't know how that works. Like I don't know. I was just like, I'll just connect
No,
it.
you type your shit in, and I was like, I kept saw the number go up, and it was up to like 300 people, and I was like, it ain't my people because I don't have that many.
Really,
people.
300 people?
Right now, it says it's a 297.
Holy shit! Nice.
So thank you for getting a lot of eyes, and I saw some people in the chat say they subscribed to the channel, and thanks for we're over 300 now, 304. So that's the most people
Love it.
ever.
What up?
So thanks to you. And if you're on my channel and you don't know who this guy is, links are down below to Womp Stomp Films. Check him out.
And don't forget that this weekend we have Ghost in the Fog on Indiegogo closing on Sunday. We're only at 40% right now, 41%. But I have a feeling we're going to get a big boost over the weekend. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We're releasing a new trailer for Friday the 13th, the final cut. It's a brand new, like you guys have seen most of the footage before. There is one little special thing at the end that you have to stick around for. It's really cool. We filmed it last weekend, so there's a brand new little thing in there that I think fans are going to fucking love. It's a celebration of Friday the 13th. I do something every Friday the 13th. That's where Never Hike Alone was born out of. I was just doing stuff on Friday the 13th for fun. It started as a short we were going to do on Friday the 13th. 8 years later, I'm still doing shit. But yeah, Final Cut's coming along. The Indiegogo is going to be running till at least Sunday. If we can cross that goal, I'll obviously keep it open. We can keep doing stuff. We're doing the Friday the 13th box set, which is available. So there's 5 films in that. Nice. Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone 2. Then we have the Ghost Cut anthology style. And then we have the Final Cut, which is the one that we're releasing that's going to be a seamless cut with all the films cut together with no titles in between. And then re-edits of some of the scenes. So different takes we're going to use, cleaning up VFX, doing different score in different places. Maybe adding scenes if we can raise a ton of money. That would be fun. That's not going to release publicly until next year because we have 3 Friday the 13th. Anyone who backs the campaign now is going to get the animated Ghost in the Fog short, which is a 10-minute animated short that we're doing about 3 people that get lost in a fog, wind up at Camp Crystal Lake. Jason kills them in animation. It's a lot of fun. If you want early access to that, if you want to watch it this year or before we release them next year, you got to back the campaign. If not, you got to wait till it comes out on YouTube. You got to watch it with ads. You're not going to get the full beautiful. And then if you just want to get the Blu-ray with Ghost in the Fog on it, it's the Final Cut Blu-ray, which I'm going to highlight on the campaign tomorrow to make sure people just understand that and make it easy for everybody.
You heard the man. Do what he says. He knows Friday the 13th shit. Just saying. This was Jason Lives. Next week we got the New Blood. Jason looks cool, but that movie's just not that exciting to me. And then after that, we got Jason Takes a Fancy Boat to Manhattan. It's not that great either, but it's grown on me over the years. And then after that, we got Jason Goes to Hell, which most people hate very much. But I have a good enough time with it. I've come to appreciate it as not a Friday the 13th.
Shout out to Adam Marcus and shout out to The Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees. I think they did a screening last weekend, or it's a screening this weekend. It was last weekend. They did the one in LA.
Weekend. Yeah, I think it was last weekend.
So keep an eye out for that because I'm in that. They did interview me for that. I talked mad shit on Jason Goes to Hell in Adam's documentary, but it's fun. I have a good arc. Like I knew what I was going to say. I sort of was like, I hated this movie as a kid. I have a different appreciation for it as an adult after meeting Adam too and hearing the story. So if you're a big hater of Jason Goes to Hell, I highly recommend you check out this documentary when it comes out, because when you hear the story that Adam wanted to make before Sean made him change it, you're going to shit your pants. You're going to be like, I cannot believe that this was the movie we were going to get and we were robbed of it. It's crazy. And that is the true core, like quintessential, like Friday the 13th fans getting robbed. Adam had a great idea. Adam, like you wonder, like, how did this guy come up with this stuff? It was because he was forced into a corner to come up with something different. His original take was like the ultimate Friday the 13th fan's dream. And I wish that movie got made. And I think in a way we kind of got to do it a little bit with Never Hike Alone. You know, we kind of got to touch some of the things that Adam was actually going to do, which is kind of crazy. When I talked to him about it, I was like, holy shit, like you were way ahead of me on this, but it's just too bad that, he got interference ran on, but that's the way things happen.
Interference. Fucks. It happens, but definitely give it another shot. I think if you watch it as not a Friday the 13th movie, you guys might like it a little bit more. It's
no, that's what you got to do. You got to remove yourself from the other lore and just watch it as like a horror movie. And it's just its own horror movie on its own. You have fun with it.
A lot of cool kills in that movie. So
definitely.
Watch it for that. Tent scene. Unrated cut though, because the other one they cut it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Just saying.
That was, that's a brutal kill. That's probably one of the best kills in the franchise too. But it's just not Jason doing it. So it's like,
It's the probe guy.
Yeah.
It's a probe. Yes.
Yeah, it's a probe.
But that is all I got for tonight with Vinny. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. I know it's not Friday.
Almost
yet,
there.
But it almost is. So Watch a marathon. Watch Never Hike Alone. Watch those ones if you want. They're just as good. Have a fire. Watch it outside. Don't
Watch
get
4
killed.
through 6, and then watch the Ghost Cut,
And
and you'll have a great time. The Tommy Jarvis quadrilogy.
Quad. That's a big word.
Yeah.
Quadrilogy. Enjoy it. Definitely just keep watching Never Hike. Get those numbers up even higher. Support Vinny because he's badass.
Those numbers.
Get those numbers up. They're
What is it?
already high.
Tickle that like button.
Tickle the pickle and the like button, whatever you guys
Subscribe
prefer.
button.
Subscribe. Appreciate it. If you're watching from his channel, please come over and just click the sub. You don't have to watch my shit. Just sub anyway. I appreciate it.
I didn't realize it posted it to my channel. I didn't know it would do that.
Yeah, it was on there. But I appreciate it because got more eyes. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, there it is. Oh, cool.
I was gonna say you have some people on there, and you got some people over on X. So there's people watching it everywhere.
Oh, I almost put it on Facebook too. That would have been crazy. Next time.
I got kicked off of Facebook from streaming from here to there. So
really?
Yeah, I forget what I did, and they kicked me off. I had to get
you probably said something, and they were like,
I don't know if I said something or I might have showed a clip of a movie, I think, and then they
how dare you
close my account.
But they'll allow girls to just bounce their tits all over.
Hey, don't take that down.
I mean, yeah, but it's just like I was on today, and I'm just like, it's just like this is crazy. The fact that you just flip through and this is all it is. It's not that it's I don't know. Maybe it's the algorithm.
You're not wrong, but you know what it isn't? It is not like sticking a hot dog through a donut hole. Yeah, you know what I mean.
It's like a girl in a pink dress sticking a hot dog through a donut. What, Creighton?
Yes, that's what I was thinking, buddy. That's what I'm gonna go do. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to bed. I gotta go to work tomorrow. But
yeah, me too.
Thanks everybody. Like the video, subscribe if you're new. Vinny,